Hey guys, we're back again with the CRX. Okay, so just a quick overview of what I've done so far. So from the last video, I showed myself taking the engine out. I've pretty much disconnected everything from the engine. However, I've still got the problem of taking the linkage out. And there's a really awkward pin that I've got to get out. But the problem I've got is I've got no wheels on the back and the car's on the trolley, on the lift. So I've got to try and get some more axle stands, put the car on axle stands on the back, put it on axle stands on the front, make sure it's secure, and then I've got to bang away that linkage to the gear lever, and then the engine will come out. So I've had to put a hold on that for the time being. Been quite busy labeling up all the sensors. Everything's caked in oil, so it's been a bit awkward to try and figure out what's what. A few things have been disconnected as well, which like this. I'm not sure where that goes. I've got to figure that out at some point. So I put the engine on hold for the time being. I've done some other work in the meantime. I've taken this window out, which, my god, that was horrendous. Not the easiest job in the world. I'll put a video out of myself taking the other side out to show you the process of how it was removed. I've also started measuring up for my cut on the rear panel, and I was going to cut this, but I'm not too sure because it's not very. I'll have to go through it again. But that's my crap welding. But there's a lot of filler there. But it's not actually too bad. I might not have to cut it out, but I've got to cut underneath because I can't really tell. It's a bit dark, but from the inside it's all rusty. Yeah, so I'll show you that in another video. For today's video, we're going to be concentrating on this. So this is a spare door I picked up whilst I was buying some other bits. The door's got some damage on both edges, but it's got some rust underneath. So I paid about £10 for the door, to be fair. I think it was, I can't remember. It was very, very cheap. So I thought I'd buy it simply because I want to cut the door up, cut some rectangles out of the door and practice welding them back again, then practice repairing the door and practice painting the door before I do it on the car. One reason is because I tried doing it then, I blew a hole straight to the car because my welding machine wasn't set up properly and I can't weld. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to take some paint off, and then we're going to mark it up, do a rectangular cut so I can practice cutting. I can use a grinder, no problem, but I've never chopped the car up. Cut a rectangular section out, and then we're going to practice aligning it again, holding it in place, and trying to weld it. I'm not very hopeful of the finish of this, to be fair. It's probably going to come terrible, but it's worth trying, really. So what I've bought is, I've just gone and bought some of these. You can buy any brand, Norton Clipper abrasive discs or flat discs. It's a 40 grit disc, and basically I'm going to use this to take. In fact, no, sorry, what am I saying? I am actually going to use. Let's rewind on that. I'll use that afterwards. I'm actually going to use these. So it's like a. It's a very, very hard plastic, and it's to remove paint. This is what I used to take the paint off here. Extremely efficient, quite dusty, but very, very good to use. So yes, so I'm going to start the video. Take some paint off, we'll start from there, make a rectangle, mark it off. Where I'm going to cut is just practicing measuring and cutting, really, I guess. Practicing making a cut, and we're going to cut a piece out of that door. Now, for those who are going to be annoyed by ruining a door, it's already got damage, to be fair, so I wouldn't worry, but I need to use this. And the reason I'm using this is because I want to, one, practice on the same gauge metal as I've got on the car. There's no point in me buying a welding table, which is about that thick. It absorbs the heat. And then working with thicker metal, steel, I might as well work with what I'm going to be using. That was my thought process anyway. So I want to practice doing that. I've practiced a couple of welds. A friend of mine gave me this Land Rover, not a Jeep, it's a Land Rover door card. So I've practiced a few welds. Looks like going to the cinema with some popcorn, if you ask me, but it held really well. So that's my first attempt. So what we're going to do now is, take some paint off, mark it up, cut a rectangle out, and let's see how it goes. And fingers crossed we'll get a semi-decent weld. I think it's going to be quite lumpy, which is why I bought these. That's why I bought these, because these will then take the weld back. Whilst I'm welding, I've also bought these like a wire brush, and it's a Brax 175mm. It can buy anyone really, and basically this is like a little wire brush to clean the welds in between. So that's the plan for that. I've managed to borrow some magnets from work so I can hold my piece in place, and let's see how it goes. Okay, here goes. Okay, so what I've done is, whilst I'm using this is quite, it's actually not bad in terms of producing heat, but it's still, heat was okay. I spent a bit of time here, it's actually quite hot, so I'm paying attention so I don't warp the door. Got to be really careful. And I've also tried to incorporate, I've just done it on the bend just to make it a bit more challenging, so when I'm welding it back together again I need to get it all nice and aligned. So yes, I'm just touching that as I go. That's not too bad, it's cooled down nicely now, but just pay attention to the heat. Heat is the enemy when we're doing this kind of work, because it'll warp. I've seen many YouTube videos and they all say the same thing, that the heat is a problem, so just bear that in mind. This is quite used, by the way. You can see the angle of that, it's worn out. But if I get a new one, which I've got one there, but for the sake of this I'm not going to bother, it'll come off a lot quicker actually. Yeah, so as you can see, there's no damage there, nice and smooth. Comes off pretty easy, to be honest. You can acid dip them and whatnot, but it's very, very expensive. I don't want to sandblast the doors or the bodywork on the outside. I'll sandblast the chassis and the body internally, most likely, but not the actual outside of the panels. Okay, let's get the grinding discs. Okay, so I've got my metal ruler. Just to show you, this is what a new disc looks like. I think it's called a paint removal pad. I've showed it in another video. Fantastic, really hard though, my god. They're quite, I wouldn't say they're sharp, but they're very abrasive. But they don't really damage, well, from what I've seen, they don't really damage the panels at all. Very, very good to have. So in terms of grinding discs, like I said in one of my previous videos, you can either TIG weld or MIG weld. I've gone with a MIG weld. I'll show you the MIG welder in a second. Now, because I've used the MIG welder, I want to leave a very, very slight gap around for the wire to penetrate on both sides. I don't want a butt joint, because then you won't be able to get good penetration on the other side, from what I can understand. So I've gone with an extra thin cut a grinding disc, if I can get them out. So that's what I've got, really, really thin grinding disc. And the whole point of this is when I make my cut, I'm going to cut that thickness away from the steel, and that thickness will allow the welding wire to penetrate. That's the plan, we'll see how it goes. Honestly, yeah, I'm very tight for space in this workshop, guys, so I've got to make do with what I've got. Ideally this would be on a nice table or a little workbench, and then we can work better than this. I'm just going to test it for today, so I'm not really too fussed. I think when I come to do the bodywork, I'll buy a proper trestle so I can do the bodywork more comfortably, if you like. Now that's a very rough rectangle, if you'd like. If I was to do this properly, I'd square it off, measure the diagonals, make sure it's a perfect square. It just makes everything easier. But for the case of this video, I'm just going to practice, so I can practice welding myself as well. I think I might have made my markings too large, because I'm going to be welding very, very close to the paint, so I'm not sure that's going to affect it, to be fair. Probably will do, but we'll give it a go. what I forgot to do was I had to grind. I mean, there's some paint missing from there. I need to grind away some paint from the side because you have to have your earth clamp or your negative clamp on the same panel. Ideally, you need to clamp it as close as possible to where you're painting. So I might even take some paint off there potentially. That's okay. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. Okay, so that's the worst cut I've ever made. Not too bothered in this case because that's going to fit anyway. So you see, I put an arrow on initially so I know the orientation, because if it was a perfect square, you wouldn't have that problem. Okay, so what I've done is I've prepared the door, but I'll put the piece I've just cut back in again. I've put some magnets to try and keep it as flush as possible. So I'm running my finger up and down just to make sure it's nice and smooth on all areas. And all I want to achieve is like a little tack for the time being. I might have to, what I've just done is I'll move the magnet further down. That's better. Now it's nice and flush. I'll do two little tacks. We'll try and do two tacks, not holes, and we'll see how we go. I'll talk about the welder in a minute because I want to see if it works. So let's go. No, no arc. For some reason we've got no arc. We've got gas. I can hear the gas coming out. We've got the wires coming out, but it's not arcing. I've cleaned the connection on the door. That's fine. I think I know why this isn't working, because I've got the panel out, but there's a gap around it, so it's held with magnets, but the piece isn't actually touching the door where it's clamped on, where it's earthed. I think that's my problem, so I'm going to try and do a tack weld from here and then move across, I think. Let's try that. Nope. I'm going to try and use my trusty Land Rover panel. Okay, so the weld is working. Okay, so lesson learned. So I've had to start the weld. That's actually quite warm actually for the little tacks of them. Okay, so I've had to start the weld from the door because the door's touching there, touching the clamp, and then I've just gone across. Wasn't too bad actually. That wasn't too bad, I'm quite happy with that. So okay, so I'm going to do two. I'm going to move the magnets, and I'm going to do two of the corners. Whoa. Okay, that was a bad idea. This magnet is really, really strong, so I'm going to have to do a couple of tacks and then take the magnet off because you'll just rip the panel back out again. Apologies about the noise. My neighbour's just here with his trucks going, so I'm going to keep filming anyway. You should be able to hear me quite well, so. Okay, so my wire speed's about 4.5. I'm going to increase it to just 5 and a bit. Not bad, not bad. I think the mistake I've got is that I've got an extra thin grinding disc, but because the door's upright I haven't done pristine cuts. That's the main reason I didn't buy a TIG weld. If I got a TIG weld, there's no way on earth I'd be able to weld these because the gaps are too wide. So I'm going to have to be more precise with my cuts when I come to this rear quarter and the arches as well. Yeah, that's alright, that's quite good. Sweet. Okay, so when I'm doing the proper welds, I'm going to have a compressor with an air gun to cool it down as well, because you're supposed to do a MIG weld and cool it down. This is just for practice, but to be fair, it's not looking too bad actually. So I'm just going to I wouldn't even say that's too warm, to be fair. It's a bit warm, but not too warm. So I'm quite confident in doing a few, slightly longer welds on this case. Okay, so I've grounded down the 40 grit. Not looking too bad actually, not looking too bad, but what I've noticed is where I've made the cut to the top a little bit too wide because I was moving the grinder because it's not flat. It's a lot harder to weld. Same on this side. On the bottom where I've made it, left the gap, I've left it tight, real neat. And I've also got my metal ruler, put it across. There's a tiny bit of a gap there, I think because of two things. I wasn't using air to cool it down, and I was maybe rushing, going a bit faster than I should have done really. One, because I'm freezing, and two, I just want to see how it looked. That's not too bad for a first go. I'm quite impressed actually, so I think I've got it dialed down. Also, something else to note is I've just bought a new gas shroud and a new collets, because this is, I bought the second hand. It's quite worn, so I can see there it's full of dirt, so that's not going to be helping the gas flow for sure. So if I'm not sure you can see that, but if I take that off, there's a lot of crap in there. And I haven't got the right tool. I've got to buy some proper welding pliers. All I can do is get my cutters and just take some of the gunk off. Just for the time, for a few days anyway, until my equipment arrives. try again. Okay, so I've tried to turn the welder up a bit. We blew a hole, so I've got to be careful. So I'm going to turn the welder back down again. I'll leave the wire speed as it is on 5. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, I've been round twice, well 1.5. It's getting dirty, so it's spattering a lot, so I'm going to clean the weld a bit. Right, let's try that, give that a go. Okay, so that's the second round of grinding. Looks a lot better, but I can see that it's pulled in a bit here. I see the whole rectangle is pulled in slightly. So I'm hoping that pops out again, but worst case I think if I can weld it neatly, I can just tap it out again from the inside. So I'm going to try and weld it again so I get a proper seal. Okay, so what's happened is I've managed to weld. I've still got a few pinholes I'm trying to fight to fill. So if I put my straight edge diagonally, we're actually fine. There's definitely been a warpage there, and I can tell that there's a big. I heard a pop, and I wasn't sure what it was, and I've just realised it's pulled the panel in on this seam here. I don't know if that was there before. I don't remember it being there, to be fair, so I think it's pulled it in with the heat. So I can pop that back out again, not necessarily now, so I haven't got the tools. Okay, now it's starting to get messy because I've left this gap a bit too wide, so it's really getting hard to fill the gap, whereas the bottom one seems a lot better. So I'm going to clean the weld, I'm going to grind it off just to see where I'm at and then carry on again. Turn the weld off. can pop that back out again, but I'm going to leave it for today and then tackle it again tomorrow because I've used my flap disc, so I'm going to get back on that again. But that isn't bad. Is it perfect? Nowhere near, nowhere near. I think if I had it flat, took my time with it, just welded gently, spot weld, go around, spot weld, circular motions, go around it a couple of 100 times, you'll be better off because then you're not going to warp it. And keep cleaning constantly, definitely. I'll go through my welder very quickly. Okay, so the welder I'm using is a Clark MIG welder 135 TE turbo. So I've got 0.6 copper coated wire. It is on at the moment between 4.5 wire speed setting. I've got the power on one, and then it's on minimum. There is actually a chart which I've got at home which tells you what to use for certain materials. So I'll give you an idea of what we're looking at. So that's actually quite cool now. So I can feel a noticeable indentation there. But there's a big one here. I'm not sure if that was there before. I think it wasn't, to be honest. I would have thought I would have noticed that before. In terms of the weld, it's cracked here for some reason. It's popped out again here, but otherwise it seems all right. I can probably knock that back out again, but again, it's not ideal. I'd have liked that to be a bit smoother. So what I might try and do is scrap this one and then try a new one over here potentially and try that again. I just want to make it right, really. I know it's harder because it's very small, and I think that's why I've potentially ruined it, because I've put too much heat in too quickly, because I'm trying to rush on filming and whatnot. So I might do it slowly next time and just do another piece here and just to see where it's at. So that's it for today, guys. I'm going to carry on again potentially tomorrow. Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of welding. Okay, so I'll go through yesterday's terrible welding, I guess, but it's the first weld, well, second weld I've done properly. The first one was this. A bit of practice, tack welding. Terrible job, but never mind. Bang. Okay, so what I've done yesterday was, lessons learned from yesterday is I took the paint off, and obviously we took the paint off, cut the rectangle out, tried to weld it in. But when I was welding, I tacked the corners and then started tacking again, and I went round a bit too quickly, so it doesn't look as bad from far away. It is though, I'll show you in a second. But the problem is, here is actually quite smooth, but then here there's a bit of a bump because the door popped inwards when I was welding. I could hear it, so I've made a bit of a dent here, which yes, I can pull it out, but it's not ideal. We don't want that to happen again, and I'll show you the welds. This is what I ended up with. So there's not too bad, there's not too bad, there's not too bad. Here's a bit dirty because my son wanted to practice, so I let him practice on this quickly. But you can see the holes were there previously anyway. And then here, it was welded and then it popped. Now what I think I've done is, when I've cut the rectangle out and I've put it in, I've held it with the magnets. I think I've just moved it a bit too far down, so there was a big gap here and there's a very tight gap there, so I think that might have been the problem. So what we're going to do on round 2 of this welding is, I've got the same things as yesterday. I'm going to take the paint off, I'm going to cut a rectangle, I'm going to try tack welding it. However, this time, aha, we've got air. So every other person's video I've seen when they're welding, they tack, they cool, they tack, they cool, they tack, they cool all the time. So that's the plan for today. So I'm going to try and do it a small bit, same as yesterday. Take the paint off, cut the rectangle, square out, whatever. Something else yesterday, when I was welding yesterday, when I was cutting, I was on the floor, I was really low on the floor, so I was welding at a really bad angle. Like when I was welding, I was like this, and I couldn't see what I was doing properly. I'm hoping that today, even though it's still a bit of a tight spot where I'm at, I haven't got much space to work. I've got my motorbike, the car's in the way, there's a lot of stuff all over the place. I'm hoping that when I can weld, I can actually see, if I could here, I can actually see what I'm doing. I want to get the camera in closer, but I'm worried about damaging the lens. So I'm going to leave it here for today. and I'll show you the problem. That was a compressor, which I forgot I even borrowed, so it gave me a freaking heart attack. Okay, so let's grind this bit quickly, take the paint off, and then we'll see where we're at. So. Okay, so step one, we've taken the paint off. I'm always touching it to make sure it's not too hot. So step two is going to be cutting the square out again. I'm going to make it a bit smaller than yesterday simply because I'm practicing, so. Okay, that's what we're going to be cutting out. Let's see how it goes. So, oh yes, yesterday. So what I did yesterday was when I was cutting, because I couldn't really see what I was doing. I didn't quite cut it square, which made it a bit awkward. Not too bad, but it made it a bit awkward when I came to position the plate again. So I was going to be trying to be a bit careful as best as I can today to cut it. What I might buy though is I might buy one of those little Dremel, like a powerful Dremel, because the grinding disc is quite big. So if you want to cut that out square, you've got to go further than the actual corners to get a clean cut. So I might buy a Dremel, I think, in the future to make smaller cuts. Okay, something else I need to buy, welding gloves, because when you cut these squares, they are super sharp, so you've got to be careful. Ideally you'd clean this up, ideally, and then put it back on again, but the dirty part's on the back, so again I'm just testing, so I'm not too fussed about it, to be fair. So now what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to put it back again with magnets. Okay, so that's the same thing that happened yesterday. So I'll show you what's happening. So yes, it welds better, but it's burning a hole through, so I've put it back to left setting 1, left through wire speed as it is, and I've put it on minimum again. That's not bad, that's not bad. I think now I'm going to reduce the gas slightly. I've got the gas, I can't tell what I'm on because there's no flow meter, it's the standard regulator, which is crap. Okay, so I've reduced the gas a little bit. Same settings. God, this magnet. Oh, man. Oh, sweet. Oh, perfect. Oh, look at that. Okay, so that's first one, really poor. Second one, really poor. That was higher power, but it seemed to be burning through. This was higher power as well. This was okay, but it didn't quite hold. This was back to minimum, but increased the wire speed. And this was, so if I increase the wire speed and reduce the gas slightly, so it's not, that's perfect, that. Well, I think it's perfect, but okay, so let's do more of that, shall we? Okay, fingers crossed. Yeah, you notice from the first part of this video I was doing yesterday, I'm going a lot slower as well. I'm just, what I prefer to do is when you test something, always do one thing at a time. So either the gas, or the wire speed, or the heat. Never all three things at once. Always one thing at a time, because then you can see where you're going wrong. Right, let's try that again. Okay, so I'm cooling it down, but I'm still checking with my hand to see how hot it is. This one came terrible, it's like a big nipple. But anyway, this one came terrible. But the rest aren't too bad actually. What I found is, I forgot to hold the torch at an angle, 45 degrees, I was holding it head on. So I've got to hold it at an angle, and it seems to fill really nicely. Look, not perfect, but it's not bad. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and, well not try, I'm going to clean it again like I did yesterday, before we carry on. Now I'm going to do a warping test with my trusty ruler. Perfect, very, very good. Okay, so it doesn't seem too bad, it doesn't seem to be warping either. If I could just do that, obviously you can imagine if I do this as it is now, it's going to take me forever, but never mind, let's stick with it. I want to try and get a consistent finish, because then I can, well, I don't care about the speed, I do care about the speed, but I care about the finish rather than the speed, because I can do it steady away. Yeah, so I tried doing this. The gap's a tiny bit wider, but it came terrible. Not sure why that is, whereas here is okay. Try that again. I'm also trying to be consistent with my wire. So I'd say about 10 millimeters, about a centimetre out every time. So I'll try this bit again. This bit's been very difficult. But it's not warping though. I can feel very, very slight indentation there, very slight. I think that's because I tried doing like an inch. from there to there consistently, so I won't do that again. Okay, that blew a hole through. Oh, man, okay. Doesn't seem to be very consistent, so I'm going to try and... I'm happy with the wire speed, I'm happy with the gas, because it's not spattering as much, apart from here. I might just try maximum again, or maybe 2. Let me try maximum. Okay, so failed attempt number 2. So let's go through this again, shall we? So ignore that because my neighbour wanted to come and have a look and give her a test to find out how hard it actually is. Okay, so I'm going to go through this quickly, show you what I've done. So the panel isn't warped as it was here, put way too much heat in, so I've tacked it steadily, fine. The welds seem a lot better, but they're still really poor. It's quite strong. It's not, you know, it's actually bonded, but it's not neat enough. So I've made 2 mistakes. I think when I've welded, I've taken too much off with my I've put it away now, but with my paddle disc, my flap disc. So I've used one of these. I've taken too much material away, so you can actually feel a noticeable indentation where I've been using it. It's not warped. Is I've taken too much material away. Because I've taken too much material away, it's cracked over there. And I tried, let me just try and tack weld it just to see if it sticks. And it's so thin now, it just blew a hole straight through. What I'm thinking of though is, I don't know, I could be wrong. I bought some gas shrouds, which I haven't actually used because the gas shroud I had was longer than the ones I've bought, so the collets were sticking out at the end, so I haven't actually tried the new gas shrouds. However, I bought new collets and the wire I've got is 0.6 mil. Now I remember seeing on a forum somewhere you should use between 0.3 and 0.35. I thought my welder couldn't take 0.35. I thought it couldn't take 0.35, but actually it can, because I've just noticed now. So that's where the wire feeds through. I've just noticed, because on the manual it says 0.6 to 0.8, but I've just noticed it does actually say 0.3 and 0.35, and there's a groove on the side there, and an Allen key, because I wonder what the Allen key was for. So I can actually turn that around. So I'm probably going to go home today, try buying some 0.3 copper coated steel wire, try and get some new collets. Well, essentially you get new collets and get new bits for it. I'm going to call it a day for this video. Very, very annoying. It's very, very annoying. I'm going to call it a day and I'm going to try again when I buy my new bits and pieces. So I'm going to buy a few things. I'm going to buy 0.3 or 0.35 wire, see what I can find. I'm going to buy the gas shrouds to match gas shrouds. I've checked the 4.5 centimeters, so I'm going to buy some new ones. And I'm also going to get the gas regulator so I can control the gas, because the gas at the moment is in a bit of an anomaly. I've put like a little clamp on so I can reduce it, so yes, I can control it to a degree. But I'm not happy with the welding. It's better, but it's not good enough, to be fair. It's not bad, actually. It really isn't bad. Well, let's just say it's better than that. So day 1, terrible. Day 2, still terrible, but not as terrible. If I really had to patch these up and use filler, I'd get away with it, but that's not what I'm trying to achieve. The good thing is I only have to weld, well, I've got to weld all the sills. I'm probably going to have to chop the arch on the other side out. This one might be okay, I'm not too sure yet. But I've got this, which is going to be highly visible, so I've got to be really, really careful. So really, I want my welds to be spot on before I go any further, really. Okay guys, so I'm going to end the video here, call it a day for today. I'll be back next week, I'll get some more bits, and we shall try again. Fingers crossed, won't be as terrible. I've still got 1 space, 2 spaces, 3 spaces left. Worst case, I can get another door, and I might even try this. I didn't try this because this got a slight curve to it, so I was a bit worried about trying there first. I thought I might as well go for the flat bit with a slight curve at the top. That's it guys, have a good day. Over and out, I'll see you in the next video.